So let's see. Come on. You are screen sharing. Let me make sure I'm recording. Okay, we're recording. I'm going to run through a few short slides before I turn the floor over to our presenter. Everybody see my? You see the slides?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. Well, I welcome everyone to this month's meeting of the Nashville Microsoft Azure User Group. For those of you who are new here, we meet every month here in Nashville, and we do have a YouTube channel. We're going to be posting our the recording and all the other recordings in our YouTube channel. So that's the link to the YouTube channel. But you can find us, just do a search for Nashville Microsoft Azure User Group in YouTube, and you'll find us. Okay, those of you who don't know, we're by the title, we're all about Microsoft Azure. Everything, education, pretty much all levels and all parts of Azure, including development, operations, infrastructure, governance, whatever we need, what the members are interested in. And if you are interested in a particular topic, let us know, and we'll try to schedule that topic. Okay. This is our user group logistics. Like I say, we normally meet every third Thursday of the month at 6 o'clock at Microsoft here in Nashville. Unfortunately, with the pandemic, we're only online right now. Meetings are on regularly. We currently have over 1,800 registered members. So the group is large. People are surprised that the group is this large, considering that we're here in Nashville, but that's what we're at. We can still use more members, so tell your friends and coworkers about us, and we'll welcome them with open arms. And like I said, if you have a topic that you're interested in, let us know. We're currently working on the program for the rest of the year. So starting next month, we'll be making some announcements soon. This is the board of directors. I'm the founder of the group and the president and founder of the group back in 2013 when we only had 4 members. We have, like I said, now we have over 1,800. I just started a job working for Computer Task Group as an Azure Solutions Architect. So that's who I am. Roger Dolman is a co-founder of the group, and he's a vice president. He is also an enterprise architect with Deloitte here in Nashville. Tim Warner is a name that's probably familiar to a lot of you. He's a very well-known Azure MVP, Pluralsight author, book author. He's done a lot of education on Azure. Okela Alred is a board member, and she's our director of academic outreach, working with the colleges and universities in the area to recruit new members. Matthew Puckett from Microsoft is a principal cloud solution architect with Microsoft, and he's been our meeting space sponsor and our champion for the last 7 years. Let's see, who else? Jack Butler is our refreshment sponsor. VACO has been providing us with refreshments ever since 2013, which is amazing. If you've ever run a user group, you know that sometimes getting refreshments paid for and sponsors lined up is, can be a hassle. So we've been very lucky in that respect. And with that, I do want to thank our sponsors. Again, Microsoft for meeting space when we meet on site. Microsoft is also paying now for our meetup dues. So that's another way that they sponsor our group. VACO is a refreshment sponsor when we do have refreshments, when we do meet on site. They're also providing us with a Zoom subscription that we're using. So it's, it's very, very useful. They're very, very good sponsor. And again, they've been our sponsors since the very beginning. The Greater Nashville Technology Council is also a sponsor. And I happen to be the chairman of the Technology Community Council Leadership Group. So we support all the user groups that are technology focused here in the Nashville area. If you have a company and you're interested in co-sponsoring a future meeting, naturally we can't take refreshments or or things that we have physical things, but we could always take things to raffle off to our members if if your company wants some publicity. Okay, and Roger Dahlman is actually in charge of that program, so let him know if you do have something. And tonight, I want to turn the floor over to our presenter, Travis Roberts, and Travis is going to present on Azure Image Builder. So, Treasure, I'll let you have the floor. I can't hear you, Travis.
Today, I'm going to learn about the unmute button. Thank you, Bill. I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys about this. I wish I was there in person, but yeah, maybe next time. So my name's Travis Roberts. I am, let's see here. You guys should be able to see a PowerPoint now. Can you guys see the PowerPoint? I'm going to assume you can. Just pipe up or let me know if you can't. My name's Travis Roberts. I'm a cloud infrastructure architect at RBA Consulting. I also blog and run a YouTube channel called Seraltos.
Hey, Travis, does anybody else see your presentation? Because I don't see it.
Do you see me?
I see what looks like a
okay, I see. Wait a minute.
bio card.
Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong place. Hang on. Huh.
You guys should see a picture of me in RBA and some.
I see that, but it's only in a little tiny window.
It's fine here.
Does anybody else have an image? Do you see it as well? Do you see them okay?
Bill, can you stop sharing and let Travis share?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that's the problem. Thanks, Travis. Thanks.
Okay.
You said that. Thank you.
Is it good now?
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay. So let's see. I publish. So my name's Travis. I run a YouTube channel and called Seraltos and a blog. I published a course on udemy.com called Zero to Hero with Windows Virtual Desktop. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about Image Builder. So I have notes here a few weeks ago, it was actually a couple months ago now, I created a YouTube series on Azure Image Builder, attempting to explain how it works and how we can use it to create consistent custom images based on an up-to-date Azure Marketplace image. There's a QR code there on the screen if you want to take a look at it. If you Google my name and Image Builder, it'll probably come up pretty quick. I don't plan on going over what I covered in the videos. I'm going to skim through most of that stuff or some of that stuff. But I want to give a condensed version along with some insight into the steps I took to create the video and why I took them and kind of what I learned. So a little backstory first, though. My biggest obstacle was not the technology. It was more of a question of what the benefit is. What need is the product trying to satisfy? And as a side note also, this video was created with Image Builder or with creating an image for Windows Virtual Desktop in mind. The theories apply with Windows Server and Linux as well. With Linux, shell script is used instead of PowerShell. Okay, so as a background, this is my starting point. Norton Ghost. I don't have a background in client OS deployment. My experience is more on the infrastructure side. A long time ago, though, when I did deploy images, this is what I used. And for those of you who have not had the pleasure of working with Norton Ghost, this is what I'll refer to as a snapshot-based imaging technology. So what do I mean by that? The OS is installed on a computer, all of the software is added, and once ready, Sysprep is ran to normalize the image and create a usable point-in-time gold image of the computer. This image is then copied to other computers and uses the base image. This type of imaging is often used for VDI with a read-only gold image used to build identical virtual desktops. Image-based deployments fell out of favor for workstations because the images get outdated fairly quickly. OS patching takes place every month, and the more applications, the more cycles of deploying the image, updating it, and then creating a new image from that update. With Windows 10, there's a limitation of 8 Sysprep. So on the 9th cycle, you have to kind of start that process all over again by deploying an OS, adding all the applications. And you can imagine if you had multiple images with different departments, that would be a lot of work. However, this is the image state to use to deploy custom VM images in Azure. This is what I've done for just about all of my images before Image Builder. I deploy a VM, Azure VM, add all of the software, then sysprep it and create a custom image off from that. If you've created a Windows image in Azure, the last step is to run sysprep and shut down the VM before capturing the image. So Norton Ghost is no longer a product, at least not for the enterprise. It fell out of favor for task-based imaging solutions. SCCM being a significant player with that, but there are other products like DSC or desired state configuration, Chef and Puppet come to mind as options to that. This process starts with a fresh OS installed and adds customizations and software to prepare the computer for use. This way, if one part of the image changes, such as an application gets updated, we only have to work with that task in the sequence. We don't have to update the base image as we did with that snapshot technology. So with task-based deployments, it's easy to manage individual customizations without creating a new image. That makes it easier to manage from that standpoint, but the overall process can be more complicated than the simple Ghost snapshot option. Also, task-based deployments is not natively supported in Azure. There are extensions that can add the functionality, like DSC, for example, but that runs post-image deployment. So rapidly scaling out would take additional times as the servers are first deployed, and then those customizations are added after the deployment. Okay, so let's bring this back around to Image Builder. The goal for my project was to create a custom Windows 10 multi-session snapshot image to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop sessions in Azure. But I also wanted to avoid the cycle of redeploying, updating, and imaging when changes were required to the image, like monthly patching. This is really what the problem that Image Builder solves. For example, we can start with an updated Azure Marketplace base image. This could be Windows Server or Linux OS, or your own image from a storage account or a managed image for that matter. But for Windows Virtual Desktop, I used a Windows 10 multi-user OS from the Marketplace. Image Builder creates a new VM based on that source image, and then runs a customization process using PowerShell for Windows or a shell script for Linux to apply customizations, such as installing software and updates. This is kind of similar to the task-based sequence we talked about before. We use PowerShell to download and install the software and add customizations during this step. Once finished, Azure Image Builder syspreps the OS and outputs an image ready for use to build VMs. This gives us the best of both worlds. And here's the value of Image Builder. A script is used to install the software, allowing us to update and modify that without redeploying the image. At the end, we have a ready-to-use custom sysprepped image built from an updated Azure Marketplace base image. Once I realized the relationships between these steps and how it compared to like Ghost and SCCM, I was able to better understand the problem it intended to solve and how we can use it for creating those images for Windows Virtual Desktop session hosts or Linux VMs for that matter. Other than Windows Virtual Desktop, they could be used to build like scale sets to keep the image updated in a scale set. Or apply security baselines or corporate customizations to a base image that you may want to have in place before anybody uses that image to deploy a server. Also, if somebody was providing a Marketplace image to the public, they could use this to run updates on that image. So there's a lot of uses for it beyond Windows Virtual Desktop. Okay, so let's take a look at what I did in the video to create this. And if you've ever looked at Windows or Image Builder documentation, you've seen this image before. My source was a Windows 10 multi-user image available from the Marketplace. Using this as a starting point, we should always get the most recent updates to the image. If I build a new image every month, that image should have updates. There's also an update customization we can use to get any outstanding updates. Once the source is selected, next is the customizer. We're going to spend a lot more time on that coming up, or on this step coming up. This uses PowerShell to customize the image. Again, this is where that task-based customization takes place. Using PowerShell, it downloads source files and then installs applications. Once finished, we output the image. For this example, I used a managed image. Going to a shared image gallery would be more useful, and that's what I've done with my customers. I left that out of the video though, because I would have had to go over shared image gallery, and I thought the videos were getting long enough. But managed image will work as well. So from there, we can deploy that deploy an Azure VM with the image. And I promise there's not a lot more slides left. So let's move on to setting up Image Builder. This is a high-level overview of onboarding steps to prepare a subscription for Image Builder. It's in public preview, and it has been for a while. I've heard rumors. I think it's been announced that, sometime midsummer, I guess, is when it may be going GA. It was funny, a few weeks ago, I posted an article saying that it was GA, and that article was pulled back. So I was pretty happy when I saw that, but it's not GA yet. So in order to get this to work, we need to register Azure Image Builder as a feature in the subscription. After that, we create a user-assigned managed identity, and then give it a role that allows it to add managed images or update the shared image gallery. Once that's done, we create the deployment and then build the image. We create the deployment and build the image. Once we have that image, we can build the VMs. So let's dive into enabling features. And there's like 3 distinct kind of sections that I go over. The first is preparing the environment, and then the other one is the managed identities. And those only really need to be done once in a subscription. Okay, so all these scripts are available on my GitHub repo, and there's a link to that in those videos. And I do go over a little bit more detail on the videos. So the first, we have to connect. So I've got some code in there, but really what we're doing is we're running a register AZ provider feature, and that's just going to register that image builder feature to the subscription. And then that can take a few minutes. I did this on a new subscription a couple days ago, and it took like 10 minutes. So I've got a line here to just verify it's finished before moving on. Once you're done with that, there's a couple other providers that need to be registered. Like Key Vault, most of them you probably already registered in a subscription. This just loops through and registers them if they're not. So the next one is the enable identity. And I'll be honest, every time I feel like I'm just, when I talk about this, I make it more complicated than it is. All that this script does, or these code snippets does, is it creates a managed identity, it creates a custom role, and then it applies that role to the identity on the resource group where we're outputting the images. But I can go through and do a couple things here. I already have my resource group set up in here, as well as the location. Then there's a couple PowerShell modules you'll need, Image Builder and Managed Services Identity. And then it's going to create a new resource group. Here, this is I learned this from this code came from Microsoft. The %S is, let's see here, it's the number of seconds elapsed since January 1st of 1970. So what it's doing is it's creating a unique number, and then it's going to append that to a role definition name. And it does that because you could run multiple managed identities and roles for different resource groups in a subscription. They can't all have the same name. So this just updates the name with a unique ID. So I'll run those. And then there's a new user assignment. So that creates the new identity. Yep, new user assigned identity. And then it grabs the principal, the principal ID from that identity. And then here it's downloading code, or it's going to download a file. And this is a, let's see, I have to run the invoke web request too. This is available on Microsoft's GitHub page. It's the custom role definition. And if we go in there, we can see it has, these here are if you're updating an image gallery or a shared image gallery. This is if you're updating, if you're outputting a managed a managed image to a resource group. So it has both in here. You can modify this as you need, but this is, if you're not familiar with it, this is a custom role definition. And then it has the scope, which should be your subscription ID and resource group name. I'm going to come over here back to this. And what this next block of code does is it just updates that JSON file so you don't have to, which is kind of handy if you don't like working with JSON. And I didn't have the subscription name, but you can see it updated. I didn't have the subscription ID as a variable, but it did update the resource group. And you can see it updated the name as well. And then once you've updated that JSON file with a custom role definition, you create a new custom role definition and then assign it to the user at the resource group, and then you can verify it worked. So, and the whole reason you do this is because Image Builder doesn't have rights to output an image to your shared image gallery or a resource group. This just provides Image Builder with the rights to do that. Okay. So here's what the process really looks like. We build a template that defines an image. It tells Image Builder what to do. Deploying an Image Builder template is kind of like adding a recipe to Azure. You haven't baked anything yet. You've just given Azure instructions on how to create an image. When we deploy the template, it creates a resource group with a very long name. It's going to be the resource group name and Image Builder template name. This is, if we keep going with the recipe analogy, this will be Image Builder's kitchen. So this is where Image Builder is going to do all the work. When we start a build process after we deploy the template, it's going to take the instructions and build a new VM with a source image we've defined and all supporting services in this resource group. It'll create a virtual network, key vault, and a few other things. And then once it builds that VM, it's going to apply the customizations. In this example, it downloads AZ copy, then uses AZ copy to grab a zip archive from blob storage with installation files, then run a script that will install all of the applications. Once finished, it syspreps the computer and outputs that managed image. At the end, the VM and supporting services in that Image Builder resource group will be deleted. The only thing that will be left is a storage account with some files in it, like a log file. If you want to, if you have problems, you can take a look at that and try to identify what was the issue. So I'm going to drill into the customizer a little bit more here before we review the code. The customizer will run blocks of code one at a time. If one fails, they all fail and the build will fail. In this example, we start by downloading and extracting AZ copy. There is a file customizer available in Image Builder to download files, but it's not recommended for files over 20 megabytes. That's why I use AZ copy. After that, we use AZ copy to grab a blob file using a SAS URI. It also extracts the contents of that archive file to a temp directory in the build VM. Once done, we run PowerShell, a PowerShell script from a public repo. It has to be public. There's no way to authenticate PowerShell at this point. In this example, I use GitHub because I made these scripts publicly available for people to use, but it could also be an Azure storage location using a private token URI to secure the access. So that's actually what I use with customers. So let's take a look at the code used to download and prepare the template. So download, let's see here. So I'm going to walk through this real quick, and I go over it in more detail again in those videos. But basically what I'm doing is I've got a link to a JSON template. This is the deployment template, and I'm hosting that on my GitHub. It actually came, most of this code came from this site. No, actually the template came from here, but I modified it to fit what I needed. And then I created this this block of code. It's going to download that file, but it also checks to make sure there's a subdirectory called template, and then if the file already exists in there, it will ask you if you want to overwrite. And to be honest, I did this because as I was going through and practicing or perfecting the process, I knew if I didn't put some check in there, I would overwrite something I was working on. So not really necessary, but handy. So here it says I can say yes, and it'll download that file. So now under template, we have a file here that we'll take a look at in a second. After that, we define some variables. And I've got let's see here. I've got a URI I have to put in there. So this is the location of the archive file that I use for all the install media. So some of the executables or the installables I can download directly from the internet. Others, if they're not available on the internet, you can put them in an archive file and then download them with AZ copy and extract them. So that's what I'm doing. And then I have an install script here. Let's take a look at that. This is the actual installation script that's going to run to install the applications. So here it's a pretty basic script, and I used Foxit Reader and Notepad++ in this example because one's an MSI and one's an executable. But basically all this does is at this point when it runs, that archive file is downloaded and extracted. And I have a logging function here because you can't watch what's happening when Image Builder builds the image. It's happening behind the scenes. So I just wanted a way to add some error control and logging so I could see later on if it ran into problems, what happened. So that's what this block of code is. And then here's the first application. So I'm using a try catch block for error handling. Not really needed, but it is helpful again, just for any type of error handling in PowerShell. But I use a start process with the MSI exec, and then I'm passing in the arguments of the MSI file and quiet. Everything you do when you're deploying like this has to be a quiet install, or at least no user interaction, because no user is going to be logged into the VM to click next or OK or whatever. After it runs that, it's going to test to see if the Foxit Reader exe is there. And again, this is for me. This isn't necessary for Image Builder, but I wanted to run some validation that it actually installed. So I've got a test here, and if it finds that executable as part of the post installation, it'll write that it found it in that log. If not, it'll say it couldn't find it. here we go to Notepad++. This is a little bit different because the Notepad++, after you install it, when you open it, it'll ask you if you want to update. And it's kind of annoying because I just downloaded and installed it. But so I found some references of how to disable that. So I added that code in as well. And then same thing, it's in a try catch block. If it throws an error, I'll catch it in the catch block and write it to the log file. After that, we have a Sysprep Fix. Now this is something I stumbled upon a little bit later. When you run Sysprep on a VM in Azure or any hypervisor, when you start it for the first time after you've deployed the image, when you try to log in, you'll hang at the installing Windows Trusted or Windows Module Installer, some word like that. But what it's doing, or I've got it on the screen, Windows Module Installer, it just delays. And what it's doing is it's scanning for hardware and to make sure it has all the drivers set up. If you're imaging from and deploying to the same hypervisor, you really don't need that step. So what you can do is add the mode equals or mode VM switch to Sysprep. And that tells Sysprep, don't scan, just use what you have, basically. So what this does is there's a deep provisioning script.ps1 in the root of the image builder VM that it's using. This will go in and replace the Sysprep command that ends with quiet and quit to add that mode VM, just to speed up the restart. Because when I was doing this image builder, when I was going through the just testing and verifying it worked, it would take like 10-15 minutes after I deployed a VM before it would come up with a login screen. So that's what that part is. And then time zone redirection. I think I added this a little bit later too. So in Windows Virtual Desktop, when a user logs in, this will just redirect the local clock to their local time zone. Okay, where was I? I think it was back here. Okay, so that's the install script. So I've got all these other variables here, location, subscription ID, all that good stuff. So I'm going to copy this and run it, or highlight and run it. And then I'm going to come over to this Win10 multi-template. This is the template file we downloaded in the first step. And here we can see, I just want to point out, I'll come back to it, but I want to point out for the user assigned identity, it's just got a placeholder. And if we go to the bottom, you'll see the same thing. The region is a placeholder, run output name. So there's a lot of placeholders. And again, that's just, this next block of code will just update all those placeholders, so you don't have to modify JSON yourself. So now if we come back, we can see it has my subscription ID, that path to the blob file is there, as well as the user assigned identities. So let's go over this. This is the recipe. This is that template, the deployment template that tells Image Builder what to do. So we're going to pass in 3 parameters at runtime. There's no variables. And then when we get to the resource section of this, a couple of things I just want to point out. We've got some tags, the user assigned identity. So this is the identity, again, that has the rights to output that image. And then we've got a couple other things here. The properties, the build timeout minutes. When we build a VM using this template, it will stop at 30 minutes, which for the small amount of activity I'm doing to it, it's fine. But I have ran into where I've added a couple other applications. Maybe it takes a little longer to download and hit a timeout on that. So if you're using this, that's something to keep in mind. It will just kind of stop and fail after 30 minutes. The VM size is what Image Builder will use the size of the VM Image Builder will use to build that image. This was originally a D1 V2, and I upped it to V2. So that just seemed awfully small for a Windows VM. Okay, so the source is, what is that source image we're going to use to build the VM? type is a platform image. That means Azure Marketplace. The publisher is Microsoft Windows Desktop. Offer Windows 10. SKU is 20H1 EVD. And then the version is the latest. And the latest should always return the one with the most up-to-date patches. I want to hop over here because I included something at the bottom. Early on, I had a hard time finding the offer SKU image version. So I have a link here to a blog post I did. This is one of the first ones I think I did. But anyway, and I also got the steps here where you can go through and get you'll pull back all of the publishers, and then you define your publisher, get the offer. So these just step through that. One thing I want to point out though, with Windows 10 multi-user, I'm using Win-10. If I was to switch this to Office 365, I would get the Windows 10 multi-user image with O365 already installed. And then we can get the SKU and the version if you want a specific version. So that's at the bottom of that download app install template file. Okay, so that's defining the source. And here's the step. This is an inline PowerShell command. This is the step that's going to get AZ copy. So it's just running through each one of these commands in the block one at a time. It's going to create a new path or a new directory called temp on the C drive. Then it's going to invoke web request to pull down the AZ copy zip file. And then it's going to expand that into the temp, and then it also copies that to the root of the temp, or it copies the azcopy.exe to the root to C temp. And then after that, now that we have AZ copy, we can copy this archive file that's on a storage account, and then that's going to download it locally or to the C temp drive, and then we run an extract command or expand the archive. And that will put all the installer files on the temp file or in that temp directory. The next thing though, those two are inline. This one is running a script URI, and that's the script we went over. I actually did that out of order. I was supposed to do that now, but so this is going to pull down that install application script and then run through that installing Notepad++ and Foxit Reader. Then once it's done with that, we're going to distribute it to a managed image. It has the image ID, the location, and the output. And then I also have some artifact tags. So that's the recipe. That's what we're deploying out to Azure. And I think I lost my place here, but when I was doing this though, I realized I forgot something. So this is a Windows Virtual Desktop, and if you're familiar with that, one of the key technologies with Windows Virtual Desktop is FSLogix. So every template should probably have that. So what I did is I have, this is the JSON code that I need. I'm just going to paste that in. We'll put it right there. Format it so it looks nice. So this now I've added a section of code that will download the FSLogix installer and then extract it and then run the install process. So I'll save that. So let's go back to slides here. So this is what I started with, what we're going over, and what it looks like now is that installer is gonna get AZ copy, download the archive, then it's gonna download and install FSLogix, and then run that install application script. Let's see here. So it does lead to the question, why did I add it to the template and not to that install application script? Why did I add FSLogix to the template instead of just to the script? I did it because it worked better for the presentation to update the template because I already have that install script published to GitHub. So, but you could, matter of fact, what I've done now with customers is I've added that block of code to the installation script. What's interesting, it was just announced this week that FS Logic will be part of the base of the Windows 10 multi-user going forward. So really, FS Logic doesn't need to be installed starting, I think, next month. Okay, so good, we have that all done. Now we can deploy it. So we've updated it. It has all the variables, all the script locations and everything in place. Now we're going to run a deployment. And so it's a new AZ resource group deployment. We're passing in the image resource group, the template file name, and the API version, and the image template name. Image resource group name. I felt like I said image template name twice. Template file, image template name. And then the service location. So I'm running that, and what I'm going to do is hop over to Visio, or I'm sorry, Visio. Come back to Azure. I'm going to do a refresh. And pretty soon we should see a resource group with a really long name. While we're waiting, anybody have any questions? I'll throw in that I've had some mixed results while Image Builder is in preview. There's been a couple times where, like on a weekend, I'll try to deploy something and it just fails. So hopefully we'll see. There it is. So here is the resource group with a really long name. And it's got a storage account in there, and that's going to be it for now. Because again, we're just pushing out this template or this recipe out to Azure. But I want to go into the resource group. This is the resource group where I keep, this is where it's going to hold the actual image template. And if we go in there, let's see, we can see here, this is the template. So this is that JSON file we're just looking at. And you can see all the settings here. It's interesting, like a month ago, this was a hidden file. But it's available now. You can see it within the resource group. Okay. So that finished. I do have a block of code here where you can verify it. So that succeeded. Okay, so now we've taken that recipe and we put it out in Azure. We've got the resource group. We've got all of our scripts and archive files in place. Now we can actually run a deployment. So I'm going to, this is using the Start AZ Image Builder template. And all I'm defining is the resource group name and the image template name. Now, this will take up to 30 minutes. And I don't think we have time for that. So just like a cooking show, I already have one that's done. So what this is doing is it's building that template. And then once it gets done, or building that image and outputting it as a managed image. I've got another line of code or a block of code here where you can create a VM based on that image. And this is a good step for testing just to make sure it worked and everything was installed correctly. So you can run that quick. It's going to set up, well, I can show you. So here it's setting up the virtual network. I think creates its own virtual network. So it's a temporary little work, self-contained server you can deploy and just validate everything works. So I'm going to log in. So this, I've been through this process many times. This is a VM built on an image that I did earlier this week using the exact same templates and everything. And you can see we have Foxit Reader up here. And if we go to Notepad++, it won't prompt for a update, which is nice. You can go into File Explorer. So we go to C temp. There are all the files that were extracted from that archive. So I've got my Foxit Reader set up and Notepad++ installer. Here's that software install log file. And we can see the output. So it was able to find the Foxit Reader executable, the Notepad++, the Sysprep Fix, and the time zone redirection. So I get a nice little confirmation that it actually did everything I told it to do. Interesting note about this, I think it's a .log file. And I was working with a customer and we applied Windows Virtual Desktop. There's a VDI guys has a customization you can apply. So it's a whole script that will optimize a Windows 10 multi-user environment or a VDI environment. It'll optimize the image for a VDI environment. And one of the last steps it does is it deletes all like log and temp files. So when I went in to check this file, it was not there, which was kind of confusing, but I figured it out. I actually changed it to a .text file for that example. I'm going to come back here because I want one more thing. Hopefully we'll be able to see it. So this is the kitchen as I described it before. And here you can see it's deployed a VM and all those, all the associated resources to build the VM, apply all the customization. And then once it's done, it will sysprep that VM and output the image. And then once that image is output, you'll clean up everything but that storage account. All right, we're coming to the end. Let's see, I did that. Okay, so I've got a couple little notes here. Azure Image Builder uses HashiCorp Packer. So if you're familiar with that, that's what's going on in the background. There is portal integration coming, no timeline on that. So one of the things that's come up is, what about Msi App Attach? So if you're not familiar with Msi App Attach, within Windows Virtual Desktop, this is a new way of attaching applications to the image instead of installing applications to the image. So the idea is with Msi App Attach, you can create folders or virtual drives of all your applications, spin up a new just generic Windows image, create a VM, and then attach those applications when the user logs in. So you're not installing applications on an image anymore. So why would you need Image Builder then to install applications if you have Msi App Attach? And my answer to that is, I think Msi App Attach is a good technology, and it definitely has Microsoft's putting a lot into that. But there'll always be some third-party application that may not work with Msi App Attach. And I've been in corporate IT long enough to know that there's a lot of companies who won't invest in porting their applications over if they don't have to. You can take an EXE or an MSI and package that as an Msi App Attach package. But even if it works, if you call support and they find out you've done that, they'll likely say, don't do that, and then call us back. So I just see this as something that's still going to be out there for a while. So ultimately, it wasn't a bad process to figure out. There are a few steps, but like anything in Azure, you kind of have to take it down piece by piece and work through it. Is there any questions?
I had a question on the image builder side. After you've built one image and say, from a server perspective, you're trying to use that in a pipeline to always deploy like the latest image. I've seen some videos people use like Azure DevOps to create and update their images on like a schedule. Is there something that would like tell that pipeline or something with an image builder say that this is the latest image, like a tag or something that would determine like this was the last one built, use this?
So there's a couple parts. Using DevOps as a pipeline, it requires that step of kicking it off. I mean, you can initiate the process by pushing pushing an update or merging an update. I'm not sure that technology or terminology is correct, but what you would need to do is find some way on like the first Wednesday after the second Tuesday of the month to initiate that build, because Patch Tuesday falls on a non-consistent day, really. I created some code a while ago and I have it published on my GitHub page. It's PowerShell script that will find the first Tuesday of the month. So you can use that and then say, like, if you want to find the first Tuesday plus one, and then run the build process. So when you run the build process, here's what I'm getting at. This is where we're telling it what image to build the VM with, and you can use latest. And that should pull the Windows 10 or Windows Server version with all of the updates. But there's no guarantee you'll get all those updates. It can take a while. Microsoft publishes updates their images on time. I mean, they do it right away, but it takes quite a while for that to get replicated across all the regions. So I've got an example here. This is what I've used with a customer, edited down a little bit. Within Image Builder, there's a step. Let's see here if I can find it. I'm not seeing it. There's a block, there's a command you can run that will tell it to install all updates. So even if you're not getting all of the updates on the image, you can put a step in there that says, now update all of the images before you build the apply all the current updates to that VM before you build the image. There's another part to that though, is how do you make sure that when people are getting or building a server in your organization, that they get the latest version. And that's what shared image gallery is for. So if you're not familiar with that, I'll see if I can find an example. Well, actually, let me go back to that, because here, instead of outputting to a managed image that's on in a resource group, this is going to a shared image gallery. And what a shared image gallery does is it's a way of managing your images within the environment. And when you build from that, you're not pointing at a specific image version, you're pointing at an image definition. So that definition, that image definition, can have multiple versions of the image behind it. I'll see if I can pull that up here.
Yeah, I was trying to see if there was like the concept of like with like Docker images, you obviously have specific versions, but somehow within that repository, it knows when you say tag latest, it knows like the most recent one that was updated.
Yeah. So here is an image, the shared image gallery. and you create a one shared image gallery can have multiple image definitions in it. And the definition is like what you're going to point the build at. And then within that definition, you can have also multiple versions, and it will always pull the version with the highest number, except if you define this exclude from latest. So you can build an image and say exclude it from the latest. Nobody will pull that then when they're using the latest tag in the build. And I'll just hop back. So here, here it's pulling the version latest. So with Shared Image Builder, you can exclude versions from latest. And you do that because you might want to test it before you actually make it available to everybody. So then instead of using latest, you can use that newest version, the actual version ID, and it will pull that down. The other nice thing about Shared Image Gallery is I think when you're deploying servers, I want to say you can build up to 20 servers per version of your managed image or your actual instance of the image. So if you wanted to build 100 servers at the same time, you would need 5 versions of that image. And let me go back. So I can come up here and say, with this version, I can say change it to 5 in West US. And then I can also add East US 2 and put 10 out there. So you can take that one version of your image and then replicate it out to other regions. And you can add multiple copies. Did that answer your question?
Yep, thank you.
Anything else?
Do you have any, I know it's still in public preview, but is there any understanding of how they will charge customers for the service?
You're charged for the runtime of the VM, and that, a couple hours, I think. So that's not very much. And then the storage charge. So like you get into a shared image gallery, and depending on if you're, the type of storage back behind it, if you're putting 10 across 10 different regions, that's significant, depending on the size of it. I don't think there's a charge beyond that to actually use Image Builder. I hope I'm not wrong about that, but I don't remember. I just can't think of seeing anything about a charge other than the resources it takes to build the image, and then the resources to store the output. Anyone else? If not, I'll hand it back to Bill.
Okay, thanks a lot, Travis. Excellent presentation, appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna stop the recording. If anybody wants to say anything privately, you can say